going on? Can everybody hear me good?
Yeah, how you doing?
All right, perfect. How are y'all doing today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great, doing great. Landon, how are you doing?
Doing good, man. Ready to go.
All right. Coach, are you good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, just hit recording on this. So, Coach, the first question we got for everybody is, how did you get to where you are today?
I think if you just look at it, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And, for me to be here at Oak Hill, I think a lot of it had to do with the people who knew Coach Smith when I was much younger. When I first started here, I started here in 1996, and I was Coach Smith's assistant from 96 to 2007. And I think, some of Coach Smith's really close friends, Fuzzy Bartlett, is the main one. Bud Nelson. They knew me as a young man growing up. They knew that I, had the desire and work ethic to try to, be the best person I could be as a coach and also as a person. And I think, they vouched for me, and that allowed me to get the first job here at Oak Hill. And then, to be the head coach, I think a lot of it has to do with, surrounding myself with good players. If I wasn't successful in Columbia, South Carolina at Ridgeview High School, this wouldn't have happened. So, being successful down there gave Dr. Groves here at Oak Hill a reason to hire me.
What, and this could be for any sport, what athletes did you look up to growing up?
I don't know necessarily what athletes. I know I had favorite ones, but it was a little different. Michael Jordan era was when I was growing up. So my best friend was a Michael Jordan fan, and so I ended up being a Dominique Wilkins fan just because they always competed against each other in the slam dunk contest. So I like that, but there's not one particular person as an athlete that I looked up to and try to develop my game like.
Let me see here. So, with Ridgeview, you had 4 state championships, correct?
Yes, sir.
How did you build that? How did you help build that program up to what it is today?
I think a lot of it had to be, they bought into the system. Coming from Oak Hill, the system that Coach Smith instilled here, I took a lot of it with me at Ridgeview, and I think it took a couple of games for our guys, that first group that I had, to really realize that it does work. We can be successful. We can be impactful within our community if we just follow the steps. And, a lot of that is, make sure you get to the gym early. You hold yourself accountable. Me as a coach, I need to be held accountable as well. So I think a lot of it had to be with that. And, the first state championship that we won, it was with all juniors. So, it was somewhat a shock. I think a lot of us, when we went in, that was my second year. When we went through it, we really didn't know what to expect, and got that. And then the second one was the next year with all those. So that was really probably the toughest one because of the pressure and knowing that we were supposed to win it. And then the following year we won 3 in a row. The following year, not a lot of people felt like we could do it. But I think a lot of it has to do is, if you build a program, especially at the public high school, you always got to invest in your 9th graders, your 10th graders, and when they filter into the program, they know what to expect. So there's not a real drop off. And, so the next year we had a bunch of juniors, ended up winning it. COVID year, we didn't win it. And then this past year, we moved up to 5A. We were the lowest school in 5A classification with population of students. Ended up winning the 5A state championship this year, but a lot of that had to do with G.G. Jackson, who was on the team.
Going back to your Oak Hill days, like the assistant coaching Oak Hill days, stepping onto like the campus and everything, was there any like kind of like, I mean, just like shocking stuff to you and all with it?
No, I mean, what a lot of people might not know, I grew up only 30 minutes from Oak Hill. So I grew up in a small town in Virginia called Galax. It's really only 30 minutes from Oak Hill. So, like the campus itself wasn't shocking to me. I thought it was great. I mean, I still, today, I think it's a wonderful place. I'm looking outside my little office in my house that's on campus, and it's nice, small, unique campus that the setting to me helps young men become better because they can silence the noise. Especially when they come from bigger cities, they can actually come here and silence the noise and concentrate on the two things that matter most, and that's your basketball and books. So nothing here was shocking to me. Talent-wise, maybe a little bit. Coming from a small school, you usually didn't see that much talent, but, I was a student assistant for Virginia Tech in 95 when we won the NIT. So, I was able to see a little bit of that type talent, but not to the extent of what Oak Hill had to offer.
Do you have a favorite moment or like moments coaching Ridgeview?
I think a lot of it had at Ridgeview. I think it was the state championships. Those were big, but as a coach, and when you're in it long enough, now that first group of young men that came through the program that I started leading at Ridgeview is seeing how they are within the community. We've had several of them already graduated college. A couple of them have kids already, and you can see that they're doing it the right way. They're going to be great fathers. They're going to be great husbands. So, some of those things is what I cherish the most.
Landon, you want to go to some of your questions?
Yeah. Hey, Coach. I'm going to start off with kind of a two-part question. So, for some of those that don't know, maybe what are some of the differences between a prep school like Oak Hill and a high school that you see? And secondly, why would you encourage some high school athletes to look into going to prep school?
Well, I think the misconception is, especially when they talk about Oak Hill, it's a fifth year, they're older guys. Oak Hill is a private school that is grades 8 to 12. A lot of people think that, we are only a basketball factory, but, Oak Hill's been around academically for 144 years. So, that's the difference between Oak Hill and maybe the other prep schools is that, we've been around a long time, and, even though we do basketball really well, it's not what we do best here at Oak Hill. But the difference is between, for me, in public and a private school, we're able to recruit. So I know when I was at Ridgeview, we weren't able to recruit. Basically, you got what was walking in the hallways, and you built your team around that. Here at Oak Hill, I'm having to recruit, and going into your second part of the question, why would I recruit somebody here? I can really use the phrase that I did for Gigi. Once Gigi Jackson came to Ridgeview as a freshman, he was 6'6". I told his dad, we're going to develop you as a wing, so you have to trust the process. He's never really played on the perimeter growing up because he was always the biggest. And, so at that point, we started developing him as a wing player, but he's natural inside. He's got great footwork, great timing of being a post player inside. So, those things that we developed. But as I was doing that, I kept on reiterating to his dad is that at some point when I cannot challenge Gigi any longer, we need to send him to Oak Hill, which, to me would have been a perfect sense because of the relationship that I had for Coach Smith, B-Rock, and Coach Dion. And, so I think it's difficult for a high school coach to really tell a kid that, their best player, maybe the best player to ever be in the school, hey, you need to go somewhere else. I know it's difficult on them because, they need that player sometimes to help keep their job, to help win basketball games. But, if you're doing it the right way, things will come around. And the success for you will be there. But, I've always told Gigi and their family is that once I can't challenge you anymore, we need to go on. And, we discussed it several times this past year before I knew I got the job at Oak Hill. I changed the schedule up at Ridgeview. We traveled to Vegas. We traveled to New Orleans. We played in a big Chick-fil-A Classic, the Bash in South Carolina that we played in. National schedule for a public school to challenge Gigi to get where he is today. So I think the main reason why most kids would want to choose to come Oak Hill is the exposure, but also, to be challenged every day in practice. Whereas, most times in a public high school, you might have one D1 player, you might have a couple of D2 guys, but, you're not being challenged every day in practice like you would be here at Oak Hill.
So now I'll kind of shift the focus on the Oak Hill. So now that Coach Smith has retired and you're the next coach for Oak Hill, what challenges do you see awaiting you trying to fill the shoes of one of the best basketball coaches you could probably say? And what did Coach Smith leave with you that will help with that?
Well, I think to answer the second part of the question first, I think what Coach Smith left me is the ability to always call him, and I did that when I was at Ridgeview and when I was at Galax as the AD. I always had an open line of communication with him. So if I ever had questions, I could call. If I needed help, I could call. So Coach Smith will always be a resource to me. Somebody asked me today, am I taking down the sign on the door in Coach Smith's office or in my office now of Coach Smith? I'm like, no, I'm not taking it down. It's just a form of respect that I have for him. But I think the challenges now is that there's more prep schools like Oak Hill. The conference that we're in is unbelievable in the fact that right now we got 10 teams in the conference, and they come from California, Arizona, to Utah, Kansas, South Carolina, Florida, New York, and of course us in Virginia. And they all have the same opportunities as we do. You have to go out and recruit the guys and bring them in. And some of them have unbelievable resources like IMG, Mount Verde. Their resources are crazy. Their location might be better for a kid to think, oh, I can go to Florida, or I can go to Arizona, I can go to California. But, as a parent, though, Oak Hill is probably the best place because, like we mentioned earlier, is that, you can get rid of the noise, the outside noise. The kid can concentrate on, his books and his basketball. So I think the biggest challenges that I'm going to have is to get those players. In the past, it's always Coach Smith for 37, 39 years. He's been such a crucial part of the basketball in high school basketball, not just Oak Hill, but in high school basketball, that a lot of people trust him and knew him and felt comfortable by sending players to him. So I think it was a little bit easier for him. Right now, we've been to Orlando, we've been to Louisville, Spartanburg, Rock Hill, Augusta. Those are all big AAU tournaments that we've been to, to build relationships with the AAU coaches and the parents that their kids are looking at, for next year to go to a prep school. So, we've been out. The resources is just crazy of what you have to spend to be able to keep that type of product up that Coach Smith has done for such a long time.
So coaching elite athletes to some people outside of basketball might seem to them as an easy job, quote unquote. But what comes along with coaching these elite athletes and why it might not be as easy as some think?
Well, I think, it's not necessarily elite athletes or anything like that. I think that, if you go in, you have to coach each player differently. Some kids you can really get on. You can cuss them a little bit, you can fuss on them a little bit, and they'll perform where other ones can't. So, the first thing you have to do as a coach, you got to build the trust and relationship with that kid to know how to find their spot to get them to perform at the highest level. So, I think that sometimes is difficult. But what a lot of people outside of coaching doesn't realize is the time, the effort, the love and care that you have to give to all your players. And you're definitely not in it for the money. You know, especially, if you look at it as in the public school setting, you're with the kids pretty much 12 months out of the year, and you're with them more than their parents would be or their grandparents would be. You know, and then a lot of your resources that you get, the money that you get, you ended up pouring back into the kids to make sure that they're fed at night. They have clothes on their back, things like that, that a lot of people don't realize that that's what the coaches really do. The great coaches do those things to make sure that their kids that they coach will be in a much better position when they graduate high school and go on to college.
So, from what I've read, you are a member of the U.S. Army Reserve. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Have you taken anything from that to help you in your coaching career, and have you given anything to your players from that as well?
I think time management and discipline are the two things that I definitely relate to. As being an officer, you got to also, I was an NCO and then I transitioned to an officer, but being able to relate with people is a key thing because, even in coaching and in the military, you always have the same objective. And, you got to have ability to make sure that the people you're leading will buy into the same objective you have or same goal that you have. So I definitely think the Army has helped me in those aspects, and being able to relate with people from all walks of life is some of the things that you'll get as, serving in the military and then bringing it to your civilian world.
All right, Turner, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, Coach. So with Gigi going to South Carolina and enrolling early, did that shock you at all, or did you see that coming?
No, we had actually had a plan laid out for him just in case, he was ready for it. So back in January, his parents enrolled him in 2 additional classes to finish up because, academically he does really well, and he only lacked 2 classes to graduate. So they enrolled him in January in 2 classes so that if, his circle felt like he was ready, that, we could go ahead and do it early. And, he performed exceptionally well in the USA team and then also on the NBA Top 100 team. And I think, that right there showed us that, one, he's physically ready, basketball-wise he's ready. But, being away from home for pretty much a month straight, it showed that he could handle, that he's mature enough to handle the whole aspect of being a college athlete. And, another thing, too, South Carolina was really the perfect fit in the fact that it's only, 10, 12 miles from his house. So mom and dad could always reach out and touch him if he's not doing the right things.
While you're an assistant at Oak Hill, who were some of the standout players that were like easy to coach, but they were also very talented?
I think, of course we had several, but I think easy to coach because they're so competitive. Rajon Rondo is one of the first ones that comes to my mind. A lot of people, he's tough to coach, but, I'm a type of guy that I want my players to always hold me accountable. And if I'm not prepared, I need to be held accountable as well. And so I think Rajon Rondo, he was a great person and easy to coach. Steve Blake is another one. One of my favorites of coaching is Sagana Diop. I've always felt like we've been very, very close ever since he moved here from Senegal his junior year. Actually, I was a dorm parent at that time. So, Carmelo was there, KD was there, Josh Smith, Ty Lawson. I'm trying to think. It was several that made it to the NBA, but, I think another one is Ron Slay, and he of course went to Tennessee. A lot of your viewers might or listeners might know who he is, but he's one of my favorite players. Is the fact that when it wasn't basketball, he had such a personality that was infectious. People wanted to be around him, and those are the ones that I liked the most.
One big question that I usually ask, and this is perfect for you because of all the bigger names that you've coached over the years. And one prime example is with Gigi, is with these 5-star basketball players having more options now, going to college or even going to the G League Ignite. What do you think would be the better option for them?
When I was assistant Oak Hill, we had a couple of guys go directly from high school to the NBA, and that was Sagana Job and Josh Smith. Brandon Jennings, of course, had to go overseas first. I think, if you're a person that can serve in the military and go to a place of conflict, and at age 18, I think you should be able to play, basketball. Football is different, NFL is different because, the physicality of the sport. But I think if someone believes that you could do it and they're willing to sacrifice the money to do it, they should also sacrifice the resources to help make sure that you progress like they would want to be in the NBA. So I think that it should be open all around, whether it's G League Ignite. If you don't get drafted in the NFL, you might get drafted by the G League Ignite. The overtime elite, I think that would be fine as well. I think kids should have options. I think adults should have options. And, if you can provide for your family at the age of 18 and play in the NBA, why shouldn't you? And I think that there's a lot of discussion that they might get rid of that one and done rule in the NBA. So, we'll see in the next few years.
Speaking of going to professional, how was it seeing Carmelo versus LeBron in person?
Well, I think at the time you probably don't realize the impact of that one game where they played each other and what it meant on their careers a little bit. But if you look back on it, man, it was amazing. But we actually, when I was assistant at Oak Hill, we actually played LeBron James 3 times. We played him. We had Sagana Job. Billy Eaglin was our point guard. We played up in Columbus, Ohio. And then the next year, we played in Trenton, New Jersey, the one that with Melo. And then the following year, it was probably one of the highest rated high school games on TV. Is we didn't perform too well, but we were on ESPN against Melo, and that's when we had Jerry Reynolds, Isaiah Swan, Deion Dakins, Ivan Harris. So those were some of our guys, and we didn't. Marcus Williams is another one. We didn't play well that one, but looking at those two matchups, you never really thought it would be that much at that moment, but now you look back on it, it's pretty amazing.
So in our state of Kentucky, with our high school sports now, they're changing rules to where, I don't know how it is in South Carolina with it, but Kentucky, they're having schools basically saying you can enroll in another school as a non-resident and live in a different county. Is there anything similar with that in South Carolina or even Virginia?
No, I think you have to live within the zone. But if you enter as a 9th grader, if the school will allow you to move in, or not move in, allow you to come to school and pay that tuition or the extra fee, I think it's fine. But, for education as a whole, I think it should be open enrollment all the way around, whether it's academically or athletically or through the arts or activity programs within a school. I think, all schools should be open enrollment. And if you can find a way to get to that school, then you should be able to go to school. I think on the athletic standpoint is, so many kids have went to college or went on to a trade school or through the service because they were able to play sports and, they got their high school education. There's so many times that you hear kids dropping out, but a lot of it is because they didn't have something that they belonged to or had a mentor within the school that was able to grab them and help them along the process.
Landon, you want to go to some more of your questions?
Yeah. So I always like to ask Coach this, but what is some advice you would give to other men and women out there that have their eyes set on coaching basketball in the future to help them succeed?
Well, I think one, you definitely got to know you're not going to be in it for the money, but it's not, to me, this is not a job. I mean, this is something I love and I enjoy doing. So I'm never going to do it for the money. But although I think, as a coach, and this is something that Coach Smith really instilled into me to make sure that I continue this process along, is that I don't think, a coach should ever jump on a kid for making a mistake. The only mistake a kid can make is their effort and attitude. And as long as they're, doing those two things, I don't think a coach should ever have to jump on them. I'm not a negative coach. So, I think as new coaches coming up, you need to find a way not to be a negative coach, not to be the old school screamer and yeller at the kids. You have to find ways to, relate with your kids, but get them to do what you're asking them to do without screaming and belittling them.
So obviously Coach Smith left a very big legacy at Oak Hill. So where do you see Oak Hill in the future with you as the head coach, and why?
Well, I think, my main thing is just to steer the ship, just keep it going. I don't think, the landscape of high school basketball has changed, so I think it'd be extremely hard to continue to win. Coach Smith won 9 national championships. I'm a little bit older, so I don't think I can do that. I've only got about 15, 16 more years in me. But, I hope by the time I'm finished, I've won a couple. But, I think as a whole that we have to continue to keep Oak Hill meaningful and within the landscape of school basketball. And that's my goal. I want to keep it to be meaningful and also to help let everybody know how special Oak Hill Academy is academically too, and how it can help a lot of people.
I'll kind of finish off my questions with what you kind of finished. So what makes Oak Hill so special, not only athletically but academically?
I think it's the family atmosphere that Oak Hill has. We're actually one in a rural area, but the majority of all teachers and faculty live on campus. Myself, I live on campus. 2 of my other coaches live on campus, so it's a family atmosphere. We all eat and dine in the cafeteria at the same time. So if a student needs a question, they can on a calculus question, they can come up to the teacher and ask that. So I think it's the family atmosphere that we provide, but also the ability to transform kids through our church here at Young's Chapel. So I think those are some of the things that makes us special.
Turner, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. So, who are some of your favorite current players to watch in college or even professional basketball nowadays?
Well, anybody that has been part of the Oak Hill family, that's who I really like to follow, and I cheer for. But college-wise, I know I might get some ridicule from your listeners, but I am a ACC man, so I like to see the ACC do well. So any ACC team, I'm out there supporting them, especially against the SEC conference.
What is your stance on the debate that's been going on for years about Michael Jordan versus LeBron James?
I think, one, we have to see who impacted the game the most. Who changed the game the most. So I might go back further and say Wilt Chamberlain might be the greatest player because he changed the game the most with the widening of the lane, not leaving the free throw line until it hits the rim as a shooter. Things like that. I think you have to look at that. You can look at Steph Curry changing the game that, when I first got into coaching, if you wasn't throwing the line, that was a bad shot. But now you can be 10 feet behind the three-point line and still be a good shot. But between those two, I think the biggest thing is that Michael Jordan was more of a competitor than LeBron, but LeBron's going to have better stats and maybe have the best stats. He'll probably, when he's done, he'll be top in scoring, probably top 5 in rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. So he's going to own more stats than Michael Jordan, but he wasn't as competitive as him.
You talked about Steph Curry with the shooting a little bit, so this kind of helps me go into this question. So, with everybody stepping out to shoot more, do you see the use of the traditional big man starting to fade away a little bit?
I think so. I think it's definitely happening. I mean, you can go back to this year's draft. I mean, you had who was the NCAA Player of the Year?
Cheeway.
The big guy.
Yeah.
Cheeway. He can make more money by staying in college than he would have if he went to NBA or go pro.
Right.
And then, so I think the traditional big man, especially, will be an effective college player, but won't get drafted as highly as in previous years in NBA. I mean, he was an unbelievable player. I mean, he can rebound, he can defend, he runs the floor, he does all the great things, but he can't score from the perimeter. So I think the game has definitely changed to it's positionless. So it doesn't matter how tall you are, how big you are. You got to be able to put it on the ground. You got to be able to make shots from the perimeter, and you got to be able to defend multiple positions. So I think because of that, a traditional big man can't get out. Everybody's switching everything now anyhow, can't get out and guard a much smaller person.
How do you see NIL affecting a school like Oak Hill in the future?
Oh, it's affecting us right now. I think we're losing some kids right now because they're reaching out and getting NIL deals. But, in the state of Virginia, you can actually, receive NILs. But our location, we don't have the car dealerships. We don't have the other big businesses that are willing to pay a high school kid. I know other areas are doing that. Other states that has those schools are doing that. So I think it affected a little bit. But, I think with the landscape as it is now, once a kid signs with the college and, they know that they're coming, that the NIL will be impactful and they can draw kids. So, if they choose to come to Oak Hill, they just got to know that, hey, I'm not going to really get my NIL money until I sign with the college.
The follow-up question that I have for that is, what's your stance on NIL?
I like it, but I think that it's getting out of hand. I mean, there's reports or rumors, however you want to talk about it, is that, there's a quarterback at University of Miami that committed to University of Miami. He's getting $9 million, but Florida offered him 11. Now, these are rumors, so I don't know if that's true or not. And then, the Manning kid with football, he just signed with Texas for $14 million. So, if those are true, that's a lot of money. And, you're getting paid more than the coach. And where does it come down to the alumni and they're deciding what's best for the overall program? They'll have more of a say than the coach, because the coaches, the alumni are going to say, hey, I want this player. Well, the coach is like, well, I don't like this player. I don't think he will. But the alumni is going to pay him this amount of money to get him. So I think it's broken. It's a broken system, and it needs to be fixed. Maybe do it like some of the professional sports where you put caps on it. Maybe that's something to look at in the future.
Yeah, I was about to talk about the caps because our last guest actually, it was a former Division I quarterback. We were talking about the Miami situation, and he thought that there should be caps. So I mean, what do you think, like realistically, like the caps would look like?
Ooh. It'd be hard to put a significant amount of money, the exact amount of money on what it should be, but I think it has to be fair across the board, whatever it is. The SEC, the Big Ten, the Pac-10, all those, they need to come together because they're the ones who's driving this up and come up with a set number that they can give a kid, and maybe it go through like their position or as a sport, this is the max that you can give out. But I don't have the answer. I wish I did, because I'd be making money myself from the NCAA for me to come up with that answer.
With all the social media stuff, do you ever think that there's like too much exposure for these athletes at times?
I think that was one of my big things that we did well at Ridgeview is our social media. We actually had a guy do a lot of it. I think if it's ran correctly and the kids do it correctly, it's an unbelievable thing to have. But it's so easy for a kid to get on and say the wrong thing, and now it blows up, and everybody, millions of people see it or hear it, and it can impact him, his future, or her future, several years down the line. So I think it just has to be managed correctly and make sure that the people that are in the athlete's life are able to help direct them in the right way.
What changes to like rules or anything like that would you like to see to any level of basketball?
I think all states should have the shot clock. This is high school. I think all states need to go ahead and adapt that. A lot of states says, well, we can't afford it and this and that. Well, the state of North Carolina, the state of New York has done it a long time. California's done it a long time. And there's others that have done it. So I think that's one thing I think should happen. And also I think, especially at professional level, I think the basketball court needs to be wider. If you try to shoot, some of these guys got size 18 feet and they can't shoot corner threes because they're going to be out of bounds. So I think that because the game is, pushing back off the perimeter, I think we need to widen the court. So those are two things that I'd like to see change, one in the high school and then the other one professionally.
All right, the last segment of the podcast that we usually have is, just let you have the floor. If you have anything on your mind or you just want to say anything to finish it off, that'd be great.
Shoot, I really don't have anything. I just look forward to the challenge that is presented in front of me with, what Dr. Groves is entrusted me, and, actually Coach Smith entrusted me to take over for him. I just hope that they know that I'm going to continue to work hard, do the right things, and, hopefully keep this program relevant for many, many years to come.
All right. We won't take much more of your time. I appreciate you coming on, Coach.
Yes, sir. Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Coach.
All right.
All right, thank you.
I'll see
Talk to you
y'all.
later.